It was a great conversation.
It's nice to hear a kind of new approach to this problem we've all been dealing with in one way or another for the last 10 years, which is how to deal with people you know or family members who are falling down these rabbit holes. And I kind of appreciate him making not a game out of it exactly, but it feels like it's less just about like, can you pull people out or not, and more about how do you live with people?
Yeah, and it is a very I'll say it's when I listen to the series, it's more emotional than you expect.
Hmm.
Just
Yeah,
because it's a tough thing
I'm
to
sure.
be to
Yeah.
like, and it's sort of kind of torn their family apart a little way.
Mm.
But anyway, so tune into that. It was a great conversation. Before that, we have a new Facebook whistleblower,
Oh my God.
Max. On Tuesday, Sarah Wynne Williams, the former director of global public policy at Facebook, published an explosive memoir about the many years she spent working closely with the most senior leadership at Meta. There are allegations of sexual harassment and inappropriate behavior involving then COO Sheryl Sandberg and VP of Public Policy Joel Kaplan. Allegations that Mark Zuckerberg knowingly misled a Senate congressional committee about Facebook's willingness to cooperate with Chinese censors,
Hmm.
and plenty of new revelations about just how far Mark was willing to go to get Facebook into the Chinese market.
Hmm.
In fact, Wynne Williams also filed a whistleblower complaint with the SEC
Yeah.
before the book was published, alleging that when trying to enter the Chinese market, Facebook was willing to give the Chinese Communist Party access to the private user data of dissidents in China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan.
Jeez.
In one memo, Facebook's own leadership stated that one of the cons, there were some pros and cons, one of the cons of the company doing content moderation for the CCP,
Oh,
one of the plans, it was, do we let China do the moderation themselves or do we do it for them?
right.
One of the cons of Facebook doing it would be that, quote, Facebook employees will be responsible for directly responding to requests for data that could lead to death, torture, and incarceration.
Gee,
A line that Joel Kaplan changed to requests for data from a government that does not respect international standards for human rights.
That's why he makes the big bucks. He says, let's not admit to doing mass international crimes and murder on behalf of Xi Jinping because we think it might make us some money, which is it's crazy that they wrote that down.
Yeah.
That's how far they got with
Hong
this.
Kong is just, they're not up to the standards the rest of us would like.
The standards of not killing people
Yeah.
deliberately for money.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, cool.
So as a programming note, we're working on getting Sarah on the show.
Oh my God, it would be great.
I
It'd be
know. So I
huge.
think so stay tuned.
Uh-huh.
So we're not going to spoil the whole thing here, but Max, as someone who has spent a lot of time reporting on Facebook
Mhm.
slash Meta, what do you think about the allegations that have been reported so far out of this book, and how do they compare, in your view, to the allegations brought by Frances Haugen a few years ago?
Huge. I think that some of the details in this book that we know of so far, especially some of the things with regards to China, are far and away the worst things that Meta has ever done, allegedly. Like far, like beyond even abetting, knowingly abetting genocide. And like that's not just me. Like I think Meta thinks that. I don't know if you saw that they are openly saying that they are trying to legally halt distribution of the book in the United States, which they have never done before. And being that open about saying we want to be the bad guy, speech suppressor, villain goes to show you that they are like really terrified about what's in this book. But to answer your question about what's different, we've gotten from people like Frances Haugen, we've gotten like leaks from people who are mid-level in the company. She had a lot of documents, a lot of reports internal in the company. Sarah Wynne Williams is the first person who has ever given us a glimpse inside the inner sanctum, like the shadowy inner circle of the leadership of arguably one of the most powerful companies, it's kind of like a country
Yeah.
in the world. I mean, this is kind of like getting a high level defector in the Cold War from like the Soviet Politburo Standing Committee. Like it's that big of a deal. We've never had someone speak out because either they're in it for life or they get these like ironclad NDAs when they leave, or often they just get a ton of money and they have just trailing assets forever and ever after they leave. So the fact that she is willing to take on this level of financial and legal risk in order to get this information out, I think shows that she really cares about it, and the fact that Meta is willing to go so far. Have you started the book?
I am almost done with the book.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And you know me in reading.
I know. Well, now that we've done the offline challenge, you can't get enough.
But I have been unable to spend my free time on almost anything else.
Really? Wow.
Here's why. first of all, she's a fantastic writer. It is written as more of like a drama
Hmm.
than it is
That's
a
interesting.
like details of their policy.
Right,
All of
right,
that's in
right,
there,
right.
and she's got the goods in terms of she's got emails, she's got memos, but it is written as a compelling narrative,
Mhm,
so it's an easy read.
mhm,
And it's also, I do think what you said about Haugen versus her, like
mhm,
Frances Haugen had more about the the policies, the algorithm, like how it, and this was much more about how Cheryl,
mhm.
Mark, Joel,
Right.
Elliot, Schrage,
I'm not sure how to
yeah,
pronounce. I know he's the head of comms, basically.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, how all these people operate. And she, started in
Mhm.
2011, she left in 2017.
Right.
She was fired in 2017.
Mhm.
Meta's pushback is basically she was fired for poor performance
Right.
and unfounded allegations, which is a sexual harassment claim that she files.
That's so crazy to me that even now, Metaspin is, well, we had to fire her because she complained about her boss sexually harassing her.
And
That's your comm strategy?
well, and so far, because I got into this on Twitter with because I had tweeted about the Washington Post story about this,
Okay.
about and the Washington Post. The first story was about China and
Right.
the China.
The SEC
There's a lot
complaint.
more than just China, but I think that's the
Yes.
big news in here.
Yeah.
And so I tweeted about it, and then Andy Stone, who's one of their comms people, was like, "Let's be clear about what happened. We were very clear that we wanted to get into China, and we're not now." And blah blah blah. And I was like, "Well, I don't think that's a denial."
Right.
But then I was looking at and they've got all these people at Facebook tweeting. I've known Joel Kaplan for a while, and he's a mentor, and he's a good person, and blah blah. And this doesn't reflect anything that I know Sarah too, but none of them have. But none of them have denied the stories.
Mhm.
Some of them have like tried to say that some of the details of the story are off, or whatever. But all the statements look like they were written by an AI chatbot, or just like, I've known Joel for a while. He is a great mentor. Everyone is entitled to their own
Yeah,
opinion, but this
right,
does
right,
not
right.
reflect the faith. Which means that I think they're
I'm sure
nervous
it's
that this is
concerted.
right.
Yes. Oh, of course. I mean, it would be like if everybody at Crooked Media suddenly tweeted the same thing about how you have an incredibly healthy relationship to your phone and never look at it.
This
You
was not
consume
like the John
That's
Favreau
right.
relationship that I've come to know.
Who has a totally sane, reasonable amount of coffee every day.
There's the stuff. So I mean, the China stuff is
It is wild. I truly thought I could not get any angrier at this company and the brazenness with which it is selling out people around the world. But I don't know if you want to get into
Yes.
it. But okay, so do you want? I can go through some of the stuff from the
Please do.
SEC complaint. Okay, so this is all in an SEC complaint that Sarah Wynne Williams filed separately from the book, I think maybe last year, and provided a ton of documentation for us. It's been reported on. Basically, Zuckerberg offered to turn Meta into Xi Jinping's personal Orwellian police state, like enforcer
Yes.
and mass surveiller, and then lied to Congress about it for years and years that he was doing it. So some of the things that he was offering China proactively to do, proactively censor Chinese users and implicitly help Xi Jinping to monitor and track people within China by hosting user data within China, which everybody knows means the Chinese government can access it. And just to be clear, this is not just like, oh, China gets to set some moderation rules. Like the way censorship works in China is they have this whole agency that delivers basically like a stock ticker of running diktats constantly throughout the day that tells you what to promote, what the news is, what the facts are, what like to suppress. And they were like, yes, we will be happy to do that and participate openly in your mass censorship regime. He agreed to crack down on the account of a high profile Chinese dissident living in the United States.
Yeah.
And he did it. Miles Guo, who I would like to brag, I correctly guessed who it was based on I read the complaint and it was like, I think this is Miles Guo. He's a weird guy. He's a billionaire and a big Trump
He's
donor.
like a Steve Bannon friend.
Very tight with Steve Bannon, but like the CCP hates him because he was like among the elite and then he left and lived in the United
So I
States.
got to that. I just got to that part in the book.
Okay.
Like, do you know how bad that was? So
He lives
they-
in the United States. He's not even in China.
So Facebook shuts down his page.
For Xi Jinping.
And then when the New York Times finds out about it and asks them, they say, "Oh, this was an accident. We don't know how. This was an error. Blah blah blah." But Sarah has like the communication with them and the Chinese government that's
Really?
like, "Oh, well, we can shut down his one option is we can shut down his page if that's what you want."
That's fucking nuts. So to be clear, Mark Zuckerberg will shut down your Facebook page or your Instagram account if Xi Jinping dangles money in front of him to do it, and then we'll lie about it.
But you know what? Now that Donald Trump's elected, Mark Zuckerberg's very excited that we're getting back to our roots of free speech.
It's so
Free
free
speech.
to have the free speech.
I have to say, it's like I never thought Mark Zuckerberg was a good guy, but
Sure.
this book
It's so beyond the
and
pale.
Sheryl Sandberg too, it has like radicalized me
The Sandberg
about
stuff
how
is
they are.
weird.
Well, the Sandberg stuff is just like, yeah. There's like we can talk a lot about this. You can tell I'm very excited about this book because I don't even know where to begin.
Yes.
But the Sheryl Sandberg stuff is disturbing, and I'll read from the New York Times review of the book. Wynne Williams is aghast to discover that Sandberg has instructed his 26-year-old assistant to buy lingerie for both of them. Budget be damned. The total cost is $13,000 for the lingerie. During a long drive in Europe, the assistant and Sandberg take turns sleeping in each other's laps, stroking each other's hair, and on the 12-hour flight home in a private jet, pajama-clad Sandberg claims the only bed on the plane and repeatedly demands that Sarah Wynne Williams, quote, come to bed. So she denies her and then discovers because they are
Weird.
well, the Sandberg stuff is just like, yeah, there's like we can talk a lot about this. You can tell I'm very excited about this book because I don't even know where to begin.
Yes.
But the Sheryl Sandberg stuff is disturbing, and I'll read from the New York Times review of the book. Wynne Williams is aghast to discover that Sandberg has instructed her 26-year-old assistant to buy lingerie for both of them. Budget be damned. The total cost is $13,000 for the lingerie. During a long drive in Europe, the assistant and Sandberg take turns sleeping in each other's laps, stroking each other's hair, and on the 12-hour flight home on a private jet, pajama-clad Sandberg claims the only bed on the plane and repeatedly demands that Sarah Wynne Williams, quote, come to bed. So she denies her, and then Sheryl Sandberg is miffed about this.
Yikes.
And after they land, now I'm just saying from reading the book,
Yeah.
she like goes up to her and is like, "You should have said yes and come and slept in the bed or whatever." So very weird
It's
Sheryl
so
Sandberg stuff.
Weird. Yeah.
Weird Joel Kaplan stuff.
Yes.
And aside from the like, she was worried about harassment. Also, the author Sarah Wynne Williams goes on maternity leave,
Mhm.
and during maternity leave, they're like asking her to work. She also has horrible health complications.
Right.
She is like
Yeah.
bleeding, and it's really, really bad. And she almost
Mhm.
dies a couple times, like post childbirth. Yeah.
Oh.
And through it all, they're like, okay, so let's just keep the work going. Like the work
Yeah.
culture is so.
It's intense.
Oh my god.
And it's not, and obviously it's like lots of big companies have intense work cultures. You're an executive, and sometimes you get crazy requests from your boss. And like, that's not unusual. But I think what is important here is taking away that these are people who have no, based on what she has described, people have no sense of humanity.
Yeah,
It's just like
that is-
abject cruelty and like weirdness. And it's like these are people who are making decisions on all of our behalfs secretly, sometimes at the behest of hostile foreign governments, and then lying to us about it.
There's the story in the book about a Facebook employee who was in the Facebook leadership in Brazil,
Mhm.
and Brazil like passed some tough laws on the day.
They've had some
data laws,
really, really
privacy
good
laws.
regulations.
And they arrest this guy,
Right.
and he goes to jail, and then writes a note to Facebook and was like, "I'm doing great. I'm here for the for Facebook and free speech, whatever it is,
Yeah.
And Mark is like, "Well, I'm going to post about this,"
Mhm.
and decides to post like, "Look at this wonderful story about this." Instead of doing anything to get him out of jail, just
Really?
wanted the story.
Wow.
And then he's at the APEC conference
Mhm.
of world leaders in 2016, and the guy who's been freed from jail
Right.
goes to meet Mark,
Yeah.
and Mark apparently looks at him and just is sort of like, yeah, thank you, and then walks away.
My God.
Like doesn't know who he is, was told who he is, and was like, nah, not
Doesn't-
really
doesn't
interested.
give a shit. Yeah.
Ends up going to a meeting with Obama
Mhm.
at APEC.
Right.
It's 2016. This is after the election, and
I
Obama's
remember
about to
this one.
leave.
Yeah.
And Mark Zuckerberg comes out of that meeting and apparently gets back on the plane with Sarah and all the other people and is fucking so angry with Barack Obama for
Really?
telling him, hey, the election, Facebook's role in the election, like you guys are going to need to change things ahead of the next election because it's, I think it was weaponized by Trump and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And Zuckerberg's just like, he doesn't understand, and who does he think he is, and he's a lame duck anyway. Like
Right.
all this shit. He was so
Really?
mad because
Wow.
he's not used to anyone like actually criticizing him.
Right, he's
At that
supposed to
point,
be
he wasn't.
courted, and one of the details that I saw in a bunch of the reviews is that it's widely known in the company that when you play board games with Mark Zuckerberg, you let him win.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, it's a weird thing for him to be doing, playing
Yeah.
board games with all of his employees. Like, you're a grown up,
Yeah.
Mark. And can I give you a couple more of the?
Mhm.
I actually did not even finish the list of all the things that
Please do.
China, that Facebook is doing to get into China. Zuckerberg wrote a letter to China's deputy propaganda minister, someone we definitely want Mark Zuckerberg to be in touch with, saying that Facebook had coordinated with the local Chinese consulate to, quote, take down terrorist sites that are potentially dangerous for China.
Mm.
And nobody knows what that means. But again, it's taking down websites at the behest of the Chinese Communist Party. But the biggest one, I truly think the most horrifying thing I've ever heard of Meta doing is that they agreed in 2014 to give the Chinese government, you mentioned this, access to user data, not just in China, but in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And the really important context is this is in the middle of a huge epochal fight over the future of Hong Kong, which had been an autonomous democracy for a very, very long time. Beijing is trying very hard to encroach on it. There is a huge Hong Kong wide protest movement to try to fight back against it. I was supporting a lot of Hong Kong at this point. It was legitimately unclear who was going to prevail in that and whether Hong Kongers would be able to save their democracy from Beijing. And what Mark Zuckerberg is saying, implicitly, he is saying, I will help you, Xi Jinping, crush democracy, human rights, and freedom in Hong Kong in exchange for access to your market. So not just we're not going to have nice moderation rules, but we will actively crush freedom for you.
And you learn this in the book that this is not like Facebook leadership and Mark's just like this was a project trying to get into China that Mark was became obsessed with, and was personally involved in a way that he was not involved in a lot of other things at the time.
And it was very clear that he was not only willing, but trying very hard to sell all of us out to do it.
Yeah.
And I see no reason to think that he has gotten any less cynical or nihilistic in his pursuits of this.
Well, last point I'll make on this, it made me realize that there's been a lot of questions swirling. Has Mark Zuckerberg changed now? Now he's more MAGA, more Trumpy, or how did he get? It's sort of just a mask off thing. He's always been like this.
That's right.
He's always it seemed more of an autocrat than someone who's
a partner of authoritarians.
Yes, that becomes very clear.
Right.
Very clear in the book. He talks about how Andrew Jackson's his favorite president by far. At one point, he talks about how why are we dealing with legacy media outlets at all? Facebook should just we could be the fifth estate ourselves and just build our own thing. And then Sarah Wynne Williams is Hearst to be like William Randolph Hearst, and he goes, well, what's the problem with that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Either not knowing when
right.
or
It just thinks it's awful.
or just not, or thinking it's great.
Yeah, no, it's the happy story of a man in a sled. Sorry, some Orson Welles deep
She says Rosebud.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's doesn't really get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I know that she's a movie nerd too, I'm really
I'm excited to talk to her. But anyway, so it's
I'm horrified. What we're gonna learn about this.
It is a bit of a horrifying read. Yeah. It's a good read, but it's a bit of a horrifying read.
I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah. Offline is brought to you by Quince. Elevating your style used to mean breaking the bank, but with Quince, you can get high-end, versatile pieces at prices you can actually afford. Now you can upgrade your style by snagging killer luxury essentials that sync with your vibe and wallet. Quince has all the must-haves like Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50, iconic 100% leather jackets, and comfortable pants for every occasion. The best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands by partnering directly with top factories. Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, along with premium fabrics and finishes. Gotta love that. Got some t-shirts.
Oh, it's
Nice sheets from there.
Spring has sprung here.
Spring has
in Los
sprung.
Angeles.
It's happening.
We need some more t-shirts.
It's happening.
We gotta save the
Birds
Mongolian
chirping.
cashmere for next winter, you know?
Yeah.
Indulge in affordable luxury. Go to quince.com/offline for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/offline to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/offline. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Think about your favorite leaders, mentors, and idols. They don't have all the answers. Donald Trump and Elon Musk accepted. But they do know when to ask questions or seek support from their community. Fortunately, go on that too. In a society that glorifies hyper-independence, it's easy to forget that we're all better when we have a support system behind us. Therapy can be a source of support for any area of your life. It's time to shift the focus from doing it all to knowing that we're better when we ask for help. I just went to therapy today.
You did. You seem there's a spring in your step. You seem more aware of your patterns.
Yeah, I am. It's always great. Love chatting with Jamie every week. Therapy's wonderful. You should try it. Even if you don't think you need it, you do. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient, serving over 5 million people worldwide. Access a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. Easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/offline to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/offline. All right, speaking of Chinese Communist Party censorship, it's been a minute since we checked in on TikTok. On Sunday, President Trump told reporters that a sale of the Chinese-owned social platform was close and that his administration was in touch with 4 different potential buyers. As a reminder, on January 19th, Trump's first day back in office, the president signed an executive order delaying the implementation of the TikTok ban by 75 days, which means that unless Trump delays implementation again, ByteDance has until April 5th to accept a bid or face a U.S. ban.
Yeah.
What do you make of Trump's comments? And like, does this
we talking
deadline
about?
matter?
Yeah, right. No,
It looks like the 4 buyers are like Oracle's Larry Ellison, Frank McCourt, former Activision CEO Bobby Kotick, and for some reason Mr. Beast.
When you sent me this, I was like, oh, are we still doing the 75-day deadline? Are we still pretending that that's even a thing?
Yeah.
So Trump has not said who the 4 buyers are. Someone asked him, and his answer was, "quote, all 4 are good." That was pretty funny.
Yeah, he has no idea.
He's also said the U.S. government would get a 50% stake in the company as a finder's fee, which is like, do we think we want the feds owning TikTok? Although, honestly, if we doge TikTok, that might be not so bad. In one case of government waste, I could get on.
He also thinks the government is him now, so it
That's
could be
true.
his like, personal stake in it.
I think that's true. He could think it means him. So who are the potential buyers? From previous reporting, we know about 2 possible offers. One is a $20 billion bid led by a guy named Frank McCourt, is a real estate developer and the former owner of the LA Dodgers. So he has a tech background.
Yeah.
And the other is a $30 billion bid led by a guy named Jesse Tinsley, who's the head of a payroll company called Employer.com, along with the CEO of a video game company called Roblox, and for some reason, Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
These are both huge underbids. ByteDance, I learned, was just valued at $400 billion, up from $300 billion a year ago.
Oh.
Well, it's nice to know that while Trump may be tanking the entire U.S. economy, at least ByteDance is doing well.
That's important.
These are the 2 pillars of the Trump economy: are hostile foreign government propaganda apps and crypto Ponzi schemes.
That's the foundation of a strong economy.
Absolutely. So the stock market is fake, but that's right. The ByteDance, that's what we need. ByteDance, by the way, and China both continue to say, hey, we are not selling, so none of this matters. But according to Fox News, the White House is separately pushing a deal for ByteDance not to sell TikTok at all, but rather to quote unquote license it to Oracle, the details of which sound like not even licensing TikTok, but rather just continuing to fully own and operate it, but with Oracle overseeing TikTok's U.S. data centers, which you remember
They kind of already do. Isn't that part of a project?
Yeah, so you might remember Project Texas, which was TikTok's big like compromise offer with the federal government, I think like a year and a half ago, and was basically a
I
version
thought
of
Oracle
this.
was involved in that too.
That's right. Yeah, it's the idea was that Oracle would oversee their
Yes,
data center.
right.
So they're basically just, I think, like pitching that again and hoping Trump will think it is both new and also his idea. And it sounds like that might be working.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems like a good plan.
Unfortunately
for
for us,
them.
yeah,
I mean, I think that if the deadline comes and there's no deal
it
yet,
doesn't matter.
it's just what do we think? Pam Bondi's going to be like, oh no, now I'm going to track down on
I know.
this.
What, Congress is going to assert its legal authority? I don't think so. No, I agree. I think they're
I
just.
think TikTok is not going away.
I agree. I think he'll just continue to kick it every 75 days. He loves the drama. He loves getting tossed around. They won't find a solution, or they'll do this bullshit quote unquote licensing deal and we'll call it done.
All right. Enjoy your TikTok, kids. While we're on the topic of Trump and big tech, bit of an interesting announcement from Trump's DOJ this week. They will continue the Biden administration's effort to break up Google in a revised proposal filed Friday with federal judge Amit Mehta. who last year ruled that Google acted illegally to maintain a monopoly in online search.
Yep.
The Department of Justice reaffirms the Biden administration's recommendation that Google change its Android business practices to enable competition and sell off its Chrome web browser.
Yep.
Can you remind everyone what last year's ruling was and what the Trump administration's continuation of this Biden era policy means for the future of Google?
So this investigation, this DOJ investigation to Google, actually goes back to the Trump first term. This has been going on for a really long time. Huge antitrust case, the first of its kind in the internet era, as the biggest antitrust case since Microsoft in the 90s, brought by both Department of Justice and state AGs. Argues that Google, like you said, broke the law both by how it secured its monopoly over search and then by how it abused that monopoly to dominate other markets, like rather than getting people to use Google search by making it a better product so that people would want to use it, they paid tens of billions of dollars
Right.
to Apple and Samsung to make it the default. And like you see the consequences of that and how shitty Google search has become because they don't need to make it a good product anymore because they're monopolistic. The judge agreed with that, issued this huge landmark ruling, this 220-page report detailing all the illegal monopolistic behavior. So that brings us to the stage of the trial or the case that we are in now, which is called remedies, which is basically where the government makes its case to this judge for what they think he should do to solve Google's monopolistic behavior. The Biden DOJ asked for several remedies, most of which Trump's DOJ has actually maintained, and then it's modified a couple of them. The ones it's maintained are, he said it asked the court to force Google to sell Chrome, which is huge, so
Yeah.
literally breaking up part of the company. Also force Google to stop doing these payments to Apple, Samsung for default search deals. Also would have to give rival search companies access to Google's data for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And that would force Google to either sell Android, which is a smartphone operating system, or bar Google from making its other services mandatory on Android. The Trump DOJ modified this. They're no longer asking Google to be forced to sell Android right away. Rather, they're asking them to change how they use Android. And if the court determines down the line that that hasn't done enough to make the market less monopolistic, then they can force them to sell Android. The big change is that Biden's DOJ was asking the court to force Google to divest from any AI products that could compete with search, the idea being that that would extend their monopoly in search. And the Trump DOJ just revoked that, which kind of fits with their desire to blow a lot of money into bullshit AI products.
Yeah, that does. That does. But other than that, promising.
It's promising, and I think it's really it's important for the future of Google. But there are also a ton of other huge tech antitrust cases coming down the pike, and I think this is a really important marker for what's going to happen with those, including the big case coming against our good pal Mark Zuckerberg of Meta just next month over his arguably monopolistic seizure of or purchase of Instagram and WhatsApp.
Oh, for that.
Yeah, neither can Mark, I'm sure.
All right, something more fun before we go. This week, in our production meeting, we decided we wanted to talk about the JD Vance memes that I'm sure everyone listening to this pod has probably seen by now. There's the baby face JD Vance, the giant head JD Vance, giant head, tiny face JD Vance.
I'm partial to JD Vance Minion. Personally.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Very good with little suspenders.
Many of them are JD Vance demanding a thank you, like he did to Zelensky in the Oval Office.
Right.
Vance himself embraced the meme.
He did.
Tweeting a picture of his face on the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Anyway, you can check out all the memes. Check them out. Our conversation quickly turned to the larger meme digital online wars between Democrats and Republicans and why Democrats' efforts to compete always seem to result in things like the cringy choose your fighter video. We saw a bunch of House Democrats participate.
The two of these things coming at the same time is a real study in contrast.
What do you think about this? We wanted to surface this conversation here, the one that we were having in the meeting, which is why does the left seem not great at understanding virality on the internet?
So I actually don't know that this is an instance of the left, however you want to define that, being bad at memes and virality. Like this was kind of everywhere in a way that I think actually kind of mattered. Like, as you mentioned, the genesis for all of this was a response to that horrible meeting that Vance and Trump had with Zelensky. They were scolding him for being insufficiently obsequious and like were kind of threatening to throw 40 million Ukrainians to the wolves with Russia as punishment for him not sucking up to them enough. Like clearly they thought
yes, that's what's happening.
there's it's great. It's a great moment. I really spiraled over it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Same.
And like clearly what was important to Trump and Vance was having a moment of getting to be tough guy bullies in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Like that's what they value from this. They don't care about Ukraine. They don't care about Russia. Maybe they care a little bit about Russia. And like turning this into a meme of JD Vance's goofy ass face where he looks like a little baby like shouting at Zelensky, I think really does something to materially undercut that because
Yeah.
what these guys care about is image, is perception, is getting to think of themselves as tough guys, is self-image. So like, yes, to some extent, JD Vance kind of like maneuvered his way around it effectively by participating in the meme in a way that diffused it a little bit. But the fact that he had to acknowledge it, like they wanted the big headline out of this and the big public perception of this meeting to be like, wow, these tough guys are standing up to Zelensky, which I don't know why that's supposed to be impressive, but they think it is. And instead for it to be like, it sure is funny when JD Vance has a big inflated face. Like, I think that's meaningful. Like,
Well,
think it's
yeah.
really
Oh, I totally agree with that. I think he's very mockable. Not just from a like partisan Democrat perspective. I think
Right.
he's just a mockable guy.
Right.
Pretty weird.
yes,
And just whiny all the time. Like the memes are great because that is like
they
JD.
speak to a real truth,
Yeah.
right? That is kind of what he seems like.
So what we were talking about is there was a difference between so JD Vance, I think you can argue smartly, then embraces the meme,
Right.
tweets the picture,
Right.
and that's sort of whatever. Now he's in on the joke.
Mhm.
Democrats have done this in the past. Remember, like the Dark Brandon stuff, or Let's Go
Yeah.
Brandon. It became
Yeah.
Dark Brandon. I mean,
Really
Right.
overdid it.
right, and then like the Brat Summer. We went through that, and so there's like the challenge on the Democratic side of the left is there's you get made fun of with the meme, then they learn to embrace the meme,
Mhm.
but then they like beat it to death.
Sure. Yes.
And there's like Dark Brandon merch and this and that, and it's like then it becomes not cool, right? It like goes from being like cool and edgy to not
Right.
cool.
Right.
And the choose your fighter video, which I'm just like it was like it was a trend a while ago.
I
And,
like truly 2 years ago.
Then, like
Yeah.
why has it come back? And I do think on the Democratic side there is a lot right now. There is a lot of like we know that we were outmaneuvered in terms of communicating in this new media environment. So
Mhm.
now we're going to try all the things that the kids tell us to try. And the kids being their
Yeah,
young
totally.
digital staffers
Right.
who, like, God bless them, they know a lot about what goes viral
Sure.
and the
Yeah.
various trends and the various platforms. Like they get that.
Mhm.
But I do think before you get your boss to do that, which I know is also a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before you get to like make sure that it fits with your boss's personality.
Mhm.
And make sure that it doesn't seem like it's a how do you do, fellow kids
Right.
type of thing, which
Right.
is what you get a lot from Democrats lately.
I mean, I think there's a question of whether the Democratic Party establishment proper should be in the business of stirring up memes at all.
I think that's a great question. I would probably say no. Here's my example on this. Like, which Democrat has gotten the most attention for tapping into the energy, fear that's out there right now over the last month or 2 months now, however many months since Trump became
I think it's
president
been
again.
100.
Fuck. Bernie Sanders,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And what has Bernie Sanders been doing? Just going out there
Yeah.
and rallies.
He's authentic.
He's just talking like
Yeah.
like he's not changing anything. He
Mhm.
is who he is.
Right.
He's doing his thing. And that doesn't mean that everyone should do what Bernie Sanders is doing.
Mhm.
Everyone should do what is comfortable to them.
Right.
You know, if you're the type of person who would rather sit and explain what just happened in Congress today
Mhm.
to your followers, then do that. Do it
Right.
in a setting that makes you feel comfortable. If that setting is with someone else and you're having a conversation, great. If you want to do it direct to camera, do that too. But you've got to like, it's true that the style of we're going to come out and do a press conference
Mhm.
on the Hill
Mhm.
with a bunch of people, like, yeah, maybe that's over and you
Yeah.
can't do that as much anymore.
Right.
but there's a space between that
Mhm.
and like doing the latest TikTok dance.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everyone do that. That's just a stand-in.
I mean, that was the choose your fighter thing. That,
That
was
was the
basically
choose
a TikTok dance. Why do you think AOC did that? She's really someone
know.
who gets the internet. I was
I
really
know.
surprised to
But
see
this-
her on that.
Because I think what happens when you are unelected and you are going is, and you're relying on a lot of your staff to tell you,
Yeah.
here's what's,
Move.
this is cool. Here's what
Right.
people are doing. It's okay. It's fun. It's,
Right.
you just do it.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't have time to like think about everything. And
Right.
I get that, but like, and everyone's throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. But I do think that there is this view that all virality is good, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And it's partly because we're talking about the war for attention on the Republican side, their belief is, and Trump's belief is, negative attention is still good
That's
attention.
attention.
And I just don't think that works for us in the same way
I agree.
because
Right.
they are just a burn it down party.
Right.
And we don't
it's
want,
a movement of nihilism.
and so sometimes you get, oh, well, you're making fun of the Choose Your Fighter video, but it broke through and everyone's talking about it. And it's like, okay, great that everyone's talking about it. Great that it's viral.
Right.
Is it viral in a good way?
Yeah.
Does it help the perception of the Democratic Party or the people who participated in the video?
Right.
If it didn't, then what was the purpose? Breaking through for the sake of breaking through.
Right.
I don't see a lot of value.
So I want to talk about